Before we get into this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And while you're here, I want to ask, what is one life lesson you believe everyone should hear before it's too late? Share it in the comments. Your stories truly matter. That morning started like any other, but it ended with a silence so heavy it almost crushed me. Mark was sitting at the kitchen table, his usual spot. The same table where over the years we'd shared so many ordinary moments, Sunday mornings wrapped in soft light, quiet talks over coffee, the clatter of dishes mixed with laughter. He was in the middle of one of his light-hearted jokes, the kind that only he could pull off, teasing me about my terrible taste in coffee creamers. "This powdered stuff again," he said, a teasing smile playing on his lips. "If I drop dead from this fake nonsense, you'll finally know what real guilt is." He tapped his spoon rhythmically against the mug as if marking a punchline. His eyes held that spark of mischief, that warmth that made me love him. Then, suddenly, his hand jerked. The spoon slipped from his grasp. His eyes widened, startled, confused, like his body suddenly forgot how to breathe. My grip on the butter knife faltered, it clattered onto the counter. I screamed his name, voice cracking, desperation spilling from every breath. But the house swallowed my cries. Mark collapsed onto the floor before I could call for help. Before my knees touched the cold tile. Before I could ask if it was one of his jokes. But it wasn't. The voice of the 911 operator was calm and steady in my ear, guiding me through chest compressions. But inside, I already knew, the truth was sinking in, cold and relentless. Mark's head lolled to one side, fingers icy when I grasped them. When paramedics arrived, I stepped back numb. I heard words like massive, irrecoverable, do not resuscitate. I nodded blankly, unable to react. The quiet in the house grew so loud, it was unbearable. I sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the floor as if it might hold answers. Then I did the hardest thing I've ever done, I called my son, Liam. The phone rang. Once. Twice. 5 times. Finally, he answered. His voice was distant, flat, as if I was interrupting something trivial. "It's Megan's birthday," he said. "Can we talk tomorrow?" I didn't understand. Was I hearing things? Was this real? He added, almost as an afterthought, "She's got brunch planned. There are people over." I swallowed hard. No scream escaped my lips. No tears fell. Just silence. I lowered the phone and hung up before any more words could shatter what little was left of me. After I hung up the phone, the silence that filled the room was suffocating, thicker than any word, heavier than any grief. I glanced at Mark's chair at the kitchen table, the one where he always sat for breakfast, for late-night puzzles, for quiet moments with his coffee. It was empty now. But somehow it felt louder than ever. I sank down beside it, clasping the hand that was still warm from moments before, holding it as if sheer will could pull him back. Time slowed. Minutes stretched. The world outside moved on, but I was frozen in that moment, caught between disbelief and heartbreak. The coroner arrived eventually. They asked if I wanted time alone with him. But what was left to say? The moment I needed was gone. I didn't want to see his covered body again. I didn't want to pretend I was ready. So, I went upstairs, locked the door behind me, and lay down on our bed without changing the sheets. Mark's phone sat on the nightstand, silent. I picked it up, desperate for any sign, any message, any clue. There it was, a missed call from the night before. A call to Liam. No voicemail. No answer. Mark had tried reaching out to his son, maybe sensing something was wrong. Maybe he needed him. But Liam never called back. The weight of that unanswered call crushed me. 42 years of marriage. A lifetime of shared memories. A man who worked tirelessly to provide for his family. And the silence from my own son? It rang louder than any eulogy ever could. The day of the funeral arrived like stepping into another world, one where everyone's lips moved, but I heard nothing but the hollow absence of Liam. People whispered condolences, he was a good man, we're so sorry. But all I could think about was the empty space where my son should have been. Not beside me. Not in the pews. Not even in the parking lot. I called the day before to confirm. Megan answered. She told me Liam was still debating because they had a weekend trip planned, and canceling would cost too much. She said it was Megan's birthday, that it was important. I didn't respond. I just hung up. No one should have to beg their child to attend their father's funeral. Especially when that father was the one who stayed awake for nights with a crying infant. The man who taught Liam how to balance a checkbook before he was 13. And the man who called Liam the night before he died, only to be left unanswered. The funeral wasn't just an absence, it was a chasm that tore through the fragile threads holding us together. People noticed. Of course they did. Before the service had even started, hushed questions floated through the air like unwelcome ghosts. Where's Liam? Did he miss his flight? Is Megan all right? They whispered as if Liam's disappearance was somehow the family's fault, as if we should worry more about him than the man we lost. Mark's college friend, Frank, leaned over and said quietly, I thought your boy would be front and center today. I nodded, a smile forced and tight, hiding the cracks beneath. Inside, I was splintering. After the service, a man named Brian, one of Mark's co-workers, approached me near the coffee urn in the fellowship hall. I don't mean to pry, he began carefully, but Mark mentioned something odd last month. He seemed stressed, talking about helping Liam financially. Those words hit me like a freight train. Mark never mentioned any of this to me. No whispered worries, no shared concerns. That night, the silence in the house was suffocating. I poured myself a glass of wine, staring at Mark's armchair, empty, cold, a monument to everything that was gone. My mind swirled with questions, aching for answers I didn't have. Then I opened my phone and scrolled through social media, looking for anything to explain the gnawing doubts growing inside me. There it was. A photo Megan had posted. Bright pink dress. A mimosa in hand. Caption, best birthday ever. Love my hubby. The image was posted during the funeral, during Mark's eulogy. My hands trembled, the screen blurring through tears I couldn't hold back. I lay awake for hours, the house echoing with a silence so loud it felt like betrayal. Around 3 a.m., I found myself at Mark's desk, pulling open drawers, rifling through papers, bank statements, insurance records, old receipts, desperate for a clue. I needed to know what Brian had meant. What secrets had Mark carried alone? And then I found it, a locked filing cabinet, tucked away but not forgotten. Inside, a slim blue folder labeled Liam Transfers. I sank to the floor, heart pounding, as I sifted through stacks of bank statements. Wire transfers from Mark's account to Liam's, $2,000 here, $3,500 there, and one that froze my blood, $12,000 marked urgent Megan Medical. 15 transfers over the last 18 months. Mark had hidden this from me. We never kept secrets before. Between the statements, I found a folded letter on yellow legal paper, Mark's handwriting unmistakable. Not addressed to me. To Liam. This is the second time you've told your mother one thing and done another, it read. I kept quiet because I wanted to believe you were honest. But if you lie about Megan's expenses again or use this money for anything other than what you said, I'll have no choice but to cut you off completely. I love you, but I won't let you take advantage of your mother's trust. No signature. Dated 2 weeks before Mark died. Mark never sent it. 5 days after the funeral, Liam showed up without warning. Megan sat waiting in the car, heels clicking against the driveway tiles, ready to leave the moment it got uncomfortable. Liam's eyes were hollow, his hands buried in his jacket pockets. I said nothing at first, leading him inside where Mark's chair sat untouched, a silent monument to the truth Liam had ignored. I offered coffee. He declined. fidgeted, like he was waiting for a commercial break to escape. When he finally spoke, his words were clipped, polite but strained. Megan thinks I should have come sooner. She's probably right. I wanted to laugh, because of course she was the one who told him. Of course it took her permission. Not guilt. Not love. Just a calculated move to fix the image like it was a public relations problem. I recorded everything, every lie, every half-truth. I didn't trust myself to remember it all otherwise. And I didn't trust Liam not to rewrite this moment later. Did you know your father tried calling you the night before he died? I asked, watching for a reaction. A flicker. A twitch of his jaw. Then a defensive shrug. I had my phone on silent. Megan planned a surprise dinner. He caught himself mid-sentence, realizing how ridiculous it sounded. I let the silence stretch until he started filling it with more excuses. I meant to call him back. I did. But I didn't know it was serious. He never said he was sick. You didn't either. I kept my face neutral, but inside, every word cut deep. Then I laid it all out, the transfers, the loans, the lies. Liam's whole body stiffened like I'd dropped a match on gasoline. What transfers? He demanded too quickly, too loudly. The ones from Dad's account to yours. Megan's medical bills. Your vacation. The rent shortfall. Don't lie to me, Liam. And he looked offended. Those were loans, he said. We were going through a rough patch. Dad offered help. I handed him the yellow letter Mark wrote but never sent. He read it silently, then folded it back like it was nothing more than a piece of paper. He didn't mean that, Liam said. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't talking to my son anymore. Not the boy who used to fall asleep on Mark's chest during Sunday football. Not the teenager who helped build his dad's shed in the backyard. But a man who had mastered the art of rationalizing betrayal. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, the very place Mark had taken his last breath, staring at the untouched coffee mug still sitting in the sink. I felt hollow and cold, surrounded by silence heavier than grief itself. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I knew one thing: I was done pretending everything was okay. When Liam finally showed up, 5 days after the funeral, it felt like an obligation rather than sorrow. He stepped through the door, hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets, eyes avoiding mine. Behind him, Megan lingered in the driveway, her car idling, ready to leave the second it got uncomfortable. He didn't greet me with warmth. Just a simple, "Mom." I stepped aside wordlessly, leading him into the living room. The chair where Mark had spent so many mornings still stood there, empty, untouched, a quiet monument to all that Liam had ignored. I offered him coffee out of habit. He declined, shifting nervously on the edge of the couch, like a guest waiting for the commercial break. I know Megan thinks I should have come sooner, he said with a strained politeness, and she's probably right. I wanted to laugh, because of course it was Megan who told him to come. Not guilt. Not remorse. Just a PR fix. I sat across from him, phone quietly recording in my cardigan pocket because I didn't trust myself to remember all the lies. I didn't trust him not to gaslight me later. Did you know your father tried to call you the night before he died? I asked, watching his face for a flinch. A tiny twitch in his jaw. A shrug. I had my phone on silent. Megan planned a surprise dinner. He caught himself mid-sentence, realizing how ridiculous it sounded. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. He filled it with more half-formed excuses. I meant to call him back. I did. But I didn't know it was serious. He never said he was sick. You didn't either. I kept my face calm, but every word stabbed like a knife. Then I laid the truth bare. The transfers. The medical bills. The vacations. The rent shortfall. What transfers? He snapped. The ones from Dad's account to yours. Megan's medical bills. Your trips. The rent you didn't cover. Don't lie to me, Liam. He looked offended. Those were loans, he said. We were going through a rough patch. Dad offered help. I handed him the letter, Mark's letter, the one he never sent. Liam read it in silence, folded it like it meant nothing. He didn't mean that, he said. That's when I knew I wasn't talking to my son anymore. Not the little boy who'd fallen asleep on Mark's chest during football games. Not the teenager who'd helped build Dad's shed. But a man who had learned to justify betrayal. I stood and walked to the door. I'll let you know if I need anything from you. He looked like he wanted to say something, but Megan honked outside. He nodded, turned, and left without a hug, without asking how I was holding up. That night, I called Mark's lawyer, Alan, the man who handled our affairs for decades. I told him I needed to revise my will immediately. Not out of curiosity, but something sharper. Something colder, rage disguised as grief. We structured the trust to protect Ava, my granddaughter. Everything would go to her, the house, Mark's stocks, the annuities. But not to Liam. Not to Megan. No access, no control. Ava would inherit at 25. Early access only for education and housing. No luxury cars. No guilt-driven teenage bribes. We included a clause: if Liam or Megan challenged the will, Ava would gain full control immediately, and they'd lose all rights, even visitation during the trust's active years. Alan said it was solid. No loopholes. No weak points. I said, that's the point. It's supposed to hit them hard. That was the line Mark never drew. The boundary I had to set. Not for revenge, but reality. If Liam treated us like an ATM with no expiration date, he'd find out how long that machine had been watching, documenting, waiting for the moment to cut the cord. Days slipped by in a haze of quiet, broken only by the hum of life that seemed to carry on without me. Then, one afternoon, an unmarked envelope appeared in my mailbox. No note. No explanation. Just my name, written in careful, small handwriting. Ava's handwriting. 12 years old. Inside was a small black flash drive. My heart dropped instantly. This wasn't a drawing. This wasn't a birthday card. This was something serious. Something secret. I plugged it into my laptop and sat frozen as folders revealed themselves, one after another. Each named by date. Each filled with recordings, screenshots, videos, windows into a world I hadn't been allowed to see. There were phone calls, whispered conversations, moments captured from behind Ava's bedroom door. In one recording, Megan's voice was sharp and fast, angry. She's manipulating everyone with that will, Megan said. If Ava sides with her, we'll pull her out of that school and homeschool her until she gets her head straight. In another, Liam's voice was quieter, but worse. Just let Mom run her game. It's not like we're counting on the money now anyway. If Ava plays nice, she can still help us later. I sat frozen, listening to my own son talk about my estate like I was a pawn in some strategy game. The worst came in a video labeled Kitchen Night. Megan stood by the sink, whispering into her phone. If we push a little harder, she'll crack. We'll say she's confused. Maybe get the lawyer to question her state of mind. Then the trust gets flagged. I could hear Ava's breath catch just as the video cut off. At the bottom of the folders, I found a text file, just a few lines, but it hit me like a punch. Grandma, I didn't know who else to tell. I hear things when they think I'm asleep. I know they're lying. I believe you. I'm saving this in case you ever need help. Ava had been protecting me. Recording everything. Standing up for the only adult in her life who hadn't failed her. I backed up the drive twice. One copy for Alan, the other locked in my safe. And I wrote a new letter to Ava. Sealed. Dated. To be opened only if something ever happened to me before she turned 18. Because she deserved the truth. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat in Mark's chair, holding the flash drive like it was both a grenade and a gift. I made a vow to protect Ava's inheritance. But more than that, to protect her voice. Because she was the first brave enough to use it. The day of the mediation arrived, a sterile office downtown, walls painted a neutral beige, a glass table surrounded by polite furniture, and bottles of water lined up like soldiers before the battle. Inside, everyone was preparing for war disguised as negotiation. Megan and Liam walked in together. Megan, dressed sharply, like she was auditioning for a courtroom drama, confidence oozing from every step. Liam, worn down, looking a decade older than he had a month ago. I didn't greet them. I didn't smile. I sat quietly beside Alan, my longtime lawyer, the folder containing Ava's flash drive, the bank transfers, Mark's unsent letter, and the recording transcripts stacked neatly before me, a silent but undeniable threat. The mediator introduced herself warmly, her tone calm and neutral, inviting us to explain why we were there. Megan immediately launched into her well-rehearsed narrative, painting me as grief-stricken and vengeful, suggesting my decisions were driven by emotional instability and possible cognitive decline. She performed her victimhood flawlessly, reciting a script she must have memorized. Liam sat beside her, silent and withdrawn, eyes flickering away whenever I caught his gaze. When it was my turn, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't tremble. I simply passed the folder across the table. "This is why," I said softly. The mediator flipped through page after page, documentation, dates, bank transactions, handwritten notes, audio files, and finally Ava's flash drive. The atmosphere shifted. The illusion Megan had spun began to unravel. The mediator paused and looked up, fixing her eyes on Megan. "Were you aware that your daughter recorded statements about attempting to alter a legal trust through manipulation?" she asked directly. Megan's face drained of color. "She's 12, Megan stammered. "She doesn't understand context." But it was too late. The evidence was there. The recordings existed. And the facade crumbled fast. The mediator turned to Liam and asked if he wanted to speak. He said nothing. Just rubbed his hands together nervously, as if trying to erase invisible fingerprints from his guilt. I told him, "She tried to warn you." And then Megan exploded, not with reason or defense, but pure, unfiltered rage. She slammed her hand on the table. "This is all because you couldn't handle your husband dying," she yelled. "Now you're punishing us because you're lonely." The mediator calmly asked Megan to step outside to collect herself. Megan stormed out, her heels clicking angrily down the hallway, leaving Liam behind. For the first time since Mark's funeral, Liam finally spoke, quietly, tiredly. "I didn't know it had gotten this bad," he said. I told him, "You didn't want to know." He nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the floor. "I just wanted peace," he said. I looked him in the eyes and said, "You don't get peace from silence. You get it from standing up when it matters." When the mediator returned, she informed us that there was no legal basis to challenge the trust. It was solid. Morally justified. Backed by overwhelming evidence. Ava's statements carried weight. Megan didn't come back in. Not even to hear the verdict. Liam left quietly soon after, no handshake, no farewell glance. I stayed behind a moment longer. Gathering my things. Feeling a strange mix of sorrow and relief. Not triumph. Not happiness. But a quiet, settling peace. The peace that comes when the battle is over, not because you won, but because the truth finally made it impossible to pretend otherwise. Ava turned 18 quietly last Friday. There were no balloons or cakes, just a soft knock on my door shortly after noon. Her eyes were wide, steady, and serious as she stepped inside. In her hands was the letter I had written 5 years ago, still sealed and unopened. She said, "I wanted to read this with you." I nodded, sitting beside her as she carefully unfolded the 6 pages, the words I poured my soul into when everything around us was falling apart. She read silently for several minutes. Her expression shifted from concentration to tears. She paused once to ask, "Is all of this still true?" I looked into her eyes and said, "Every single word." She hugged me tightly, tighter than ever before, whispering, "Thank you for telling me the truth when no one else would." In that embrace, I felt every ounce of pain, every thread of purpose. Later, as we sat together in Mark's old chair, she pulled out her phone and showed me a video. Ava stood before a judge, calm and composed, declaring, "I'd like to change my middle name to Coraline, after my grandmother." Tears welled up, spilling over, as I watched her reclaim her identity. Choosing the part of this family that loved her, didn't lie to her, and never treated her like leverage. That afternoon, we went to her graduation ceremony. As her full new name, Ava Coraline Whitfield, was called, she smiled straight at me. In her face, I saw pride. I saw clarity. The same kind Mark used to wear when he made the hard decisions no one else understood until it was too late. Liam was there too, sitting alone in the back row. His eyes red, his suit wrinkled. Clapping out of obligation more than joy. He didn't approach me or Ava afterward. Because I think he finally understood. He understood what it meant to be cut off, in ways deeper than a bank account. After the ceremony, Ava ran to me first. She hugged me again and whispered. She chose me to live with next semester. Her roommate backed out. I laughed through tears. Knowing I'd get another year of her stories, her music filling the house, her toothbrush quietly sitting in my bathroom. A quiet victory against everything Megan tried to script. We never mentioned Megan that day. Not once. Because by then, she had faded into the background. A subplot that lost all relevance. Her silence more telling than any apology she never gave. That night, I tucked Ava into her old childhood room. Left the door cracked open, just like I used to. She said, "You gave me a life I didn't even know I needed." I kissed her forehead and whispered, "You chose it, sweetheart. I just cleared the path." And as I walked down the hallway back to my room, past Mark's photo on the wall, I touched the frame gently and said softly, "She's going to be okay, love. We're going to be okay." For the first time in years, I believed it. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your own stories in the comments. Your support means everything. Thank you for staying with me through this story, a journey of love, loss, betrayal, and ultimately, hope. If this story touched you in any way, please consider subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us share more stories that matter. Feel free to share this video with someone who might need to hear it. And if you have thoughts, experiences, or lessons you want to share, please leave them in the comments. I read every single one. Above all, please take care of yourself and those you love. Life is fragile. Our time together is precious. Don't wait for tomorrow to say what matters today. Thank you again for listening. Stay safe, stay kind, and remember, we're all in this together.